want to talk here about two kinds of Americans. Those who work for wages, creating wealth by their ideas, inventions, creativity, talent, hard work, and labor. American workers are second to none. Their productivity has continued to increase every year, but their wages have remained flat since 1980. Meanwhile, their costs have risen sharply, and along with their union membership, their share of America's income has plummeted. Something has gone terribly wrong when in the richest nation on earth, 1 in 7 families have slipped below the poverty line, and 1 in 5 children go to bed hungry. Then there are those Americans who don't need to work because of their accumulated or inherited wealth. The investor class has the luxury of creating even more wealth for themselves by investing in the labor of and manipulating the savings of working men and women. Since 1980, CEO salaries have gone through the roof, and tax rates of the wealthiest Americans have fallen to the lowest in 70 years. In addition, the rich have gained numerous loopholes that enable them to pay little or no income tax, while the middle class pays an increasing share in payroll taxes. This has resulted in a disparity between rich and poor reaching a level not seen since the 1920s. America is now on a par in income disparity with corrupt nations like Uganda and Ivory Coast. It is absolutely scandalous that the top 1% of Americans now own more of the nation's wealth than the bottom 90%. At one time, bankers were respected members of the community, and working people trusted them to keep safe their retirement funds and their home equity. In 2007, it became clear that Wall Street bankers have been abusing this trust, engaging in reckless gambling, throwing millions of good people out of their jobs and out of their homes. Trillions of dollars of working people's retirement funds and homes disappeared into sleazy bankers' mega salaries and bonuses, private jets, luxury yachts, overseas villas, Swiss bank accounts, and wealth beyond imagination. Part of these riches have been used to buy even more influence from politicians, to keep their taxes at an all-time low, to make sure their crimes went unpunished, and to keep the party going down at the bankers' casino. All attempts to further break up or regulate the biggest banks so as to prevent another crash requiring taxpayer bailouts or to stop the bankers' obscene million-dollar bonuses have been stonewalled by the Republican House of Representatives. That is why America in 2012 is still a smoldering crime scene. This is not about envy or class warfare. The Republicans keep telling us that the country is broke. We're not broke. We've just been robbed. Where's the outrage? Come on, 99%ers. Let's keep it going. The stock market is high now, and businesses are awash with cash. This is a great time to be rich in America. But we have over 8% unemployment. Why? Because the last thing a business wants to do is create a job. That would be their final resort when forced to keep up with consumer demand. As long as the victims of this crime are unreimbursed and unemployed, there will be no consumer demand and thus no economic recovery. Corporate America in its greed has failed to learn the lessons of Henry Ford. Pay your workers enough so they can buy your own products. The true job creators have always been the middle class, not the wealthiest Americans, and never the Republican Party. Their allegiances are primarily to big business, and thus they deserve the label, the Anti-Jobs Party. Today, the principle of progressive taxation has been thrown out on its ear, which leads inevitably to a bubble economy, unstable with cycles of boom and bust. Every tax in history has amounted to a redistribution of wealth, but what we've witnessed in the U.S. is a massive hemorrhaging of money flowing from the working poor and middle class to the super rich. Such maldistribution of wealth threatens our very democracy, which is fast becoming a plutocracy, if not a kleptocracy. Now, just imagine, if you can, an America in which everybody paid his or her fair share of taxes. The American economy had its strongest growth in the 50s and 60s, a time when we built the interstate highway system, found a cure for polio, and traveled safely to the moon and back. At this time, the wealthiest people, the ones receiving the most benefit from our society and most able to pay, did pay a higher federal income tax, as high as a 91% marginal rate. Today, the federal income tax on the richest American ranges from only 15 to 35%, and they have massive loopholes available. But federal income taxes are only 30% of our total taxes. The other 70% are payroll, property, sales, gas taxes, etc. As a result, we now have big-time investors like Mitt Romney paying as little as 14%, and minimum wage employees paying as much as 34% of their respective incomes. Only by restoring progressive taxation can an American economic recovery be achieved. That means major tax simplification and reform in which the richest Americans start paying their fair share. The brilliant FairShareTaxes.org plan proposes a 2% annual tax on the accumulated wealth or net worth of each household in excess of $750,000. This would affect only about the richest 12% of the population and would replace the current property, capital gains, and estate taxes for all taxpayers. It also enables lowering the income tax rate to 3% on income below a realistic poverty line and 20% on income above that line. All other adjustments, exemptions, deductions, and taxes are eliminated, including payroll, sales, and corporate taxes. The latter are largely paid for anyway by consumers in the form of higher prices and by workers with lower wages. Their elimination would make American businesses more competitive, bring home overseas business operations, and create jobs. Under the Fair Share Plan, corporate profits are passed on to the owners and shareholders as dividends and taxed as income. States and municipalities would get their operating funds by setting and collecting their own surcharges on the federal tax. Everyone would fill out the same simple 1 to 2 page tax form, throwing out 70,000 pages of IRS tax code and the $200 billion annual cost of filing our tax returns. Coupled with $2 in specific detailed wasteful spending cuts for every dollar of extra revenue, the Fair Share Plan will increase government revenues by 10%, stimulate the economy, restore investment in research and our crumbling infrastructure and public education systems, pay off America's debt within 30 years, and greatly benefit all citizens, including the rich. Only a Democratic victory in the presidential and congressional elections, throwing out the do-nothing Tea Party Congress, can make this possible. Register to vote now and vote Democratic. Let's re-elect President Obama and Vice President Biden so they can finish the job.